Good afternoon. I guess we're going to wait for a couple seconds here to see if some other folks have joined. Good afternoon. Thanks for joining today's webinar. I'm Jeff James with Storecom, and I'll be kicking things off and then turning it over to the brains of the team, Brandon McCoy of Veeam. Hopefully you're here because you're looking for a secure backup recovery solution for Office 365 Business Enterprise, including Exchange Online, SharePoint Online, and OneDrive for Business. What we hope to show you here this morning, is that with the combination of Storecom, we're an experienced high-touch solutions provider and cloud provider, along with Veeam, leading data management software company. You'll know that you've come to the right place to have a secure solution. As we know that, because we have to do this because Office 365, though it's a very robust cloud-based solution offering, they concentrate on the uptime of Office 365 while leaving the protection and long-term retention of data to you and hopefully to us, Storecom. So who is Storecom? Just a real quick commercial. We've been doing this for a very long time, 20 years solution provider of disaster recovery business continuance. And what that brings to the table is that we've seen many, many different environments and solution sets out there. And we have the choice. We have the choice to go with all types of different software companies that we investigate all the time. And what we found that stood the test of time, especially when they first came out, they basically was a paradigm shift of being image-based backup and recovery in a very short time. So Storecom has chosen Veeam because we know that Veeam combined with Storecom, which is a solutions provider and a cloud provider, that will bring the best possible solution for protection. So with the combination of Storecom and Veeam, we are confident that we provide the highest expertise and the highest level of data protection available. So to dig deeper and actually go through the actual product set itself, I'd like to turn it over to Brandon. Brandon?
Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate that intro. And you hit it right on the head in terms of what both Veeam as the software can do, as well as Storecom being your managed service provider or your cloud provider to store your data. So what we're going to do now is we're going to kind of walk through some slides to talk about what Office 365 does, what Office 365 does not do, and how Veeam and Storecom can kind of fill in those gaps. So first of all, the product we're talking about is called Veam Backup for Office 365. We're on version 5 of this product now. So Jeff mentioned Exchange, SharePoint, OneDrive. I have to say we also now back up Teams natively as well. So this is giving you a lot of granularity in terms of not only controlling how you back up your data, how long you keep it, but also real easy ways to do restores of that individual data. So talking about what Microsoft takes care of and what they do not, a lot of people think, and we're going to touch on this more in a few slides, but I'll go ahead and kind of prelude to it now. Just because it's in the cloud doesn't mean that, everything is taken care of. I can kick my feet up. Really, what Microsoft is guaranteeing is that their data centers are secure, right? They've got the armed guards with the biometric security scanners, and they've got geo redundancy. So if their data center gets knocked out, they'll be up in seconds or minutes at another data center, so geo redundancy. But that's just the services and the infrastructure that they're providing. Really, the data, that's your responsibility, right? So Microsoft guarantees that you can log in to your Office 365 account, and hey, you're in your Office 365 account. You can send an email. You can, do some of these other services. The data that was there, they don't guarantee that data is going to be there. Maybe somebody, deleted some items or some other, things that could happen, which we'll talk about. And that's called the shared responsibility model. It's not specific to Office 365. It's actually specific to the public cloud in general. You're leveraging, it's a big joke in IT that the cloud is just someone else's computer, right? Now, of course, this someone else's computer is Microsoft, which is a huge company. So of course, they've got a lot of things built in, but again, there's some things that you're responsible for as well. So if we look here, top to bottom, you see what Microsoft is responsible for and what you're responsible for. So like I said, the global infrastructure, the uptime of the service itself, yeah, they're going to guarantee that you have access to the services you've paid for and that their data centers are globally available. But the data inside Office 365, for instance, that is up to you to control. Accessing the data, controlling the data that resides in Office 365. Data center to data center, Microsoft is going to guarantee that uptime. But again, copies of your data, having a local backup of that data or an offsite backup of that data, maybe in like a Storecom data center, so that whether it's a matter of somebody deleting items or it's a matter of the whole Exchange mailbox going down, you have nowhere to run things, having a managed service provider that can kind of help guide you through those specific situations, including retention gaps and things like that. And then finally, the security and the regulatory roles. So again, Microsoft, kind of beating a dead horse here, but Microsoft is providing physical security, logical security, the machines that they're using to run these applications, they're taking care of that. But what's inside, that's kind of up to you. And what we're going to do now is we're going to talk about some reasons why you need a backup of Office 365. So first of all, if you don't have a backup, here's what you're going to experience. Limited access and control of your own data, regulatory exposure, vulnerabilities in security, and we'll talk about all these different methods and ways that you could be at risk. Retention policy gaps, that's a big one. And that's kind of like a more simple one, but sometimes, we don't think about those things in our day-to-day. While we're sitting here on a webinar, it's easy to say, oh yeah, I'm going to make sure I do X, Y, and Z. But in the real world, you're burning the candle at both ends. A lot of these policy gaps are big reasons why you need a backup. And so these are the specific 6 reasons why you need an Office 365 backup. The first is an accidental deletion, right? Whoops, I deleted all my emails. I didn't mean to, but I did. And, Microsoft is going to do whatever I tell it. I mean, it's my mailbox. So I go in, I delete. Maybe I'm a malicious employee, right? So I can permanently delete all of those emails. So there are differences in terms of how long data is kept in a recycle bin versus in the inbox versus permanently deleted. That data's gone. You can't get it back. Retention policies, confusion, and gaps. Our next slide is going to really focus on that and show some really interesting stats of how long it takes to realize that you've made a mistake in your retention policy, right? Maybe too late. External security threats. So again, the cloud is somebody's computer. So there are ways in which ransomware can hack an Office 365 account. We have a really good slide transition to kind of go through that in an animation and show you exactly how that happens. It's very fascinating. Legal and compliance, right? So again, litigation hold and things like that. Office 365 does provide some of these things, but when you get down to it, in terms of granularity, I need just email XYZ from person A to person B during these specific times. That's kind of outside the scope of Microsoft, and we're going to show that in a few slides in their own words as well. And then managing hybrid deployments and migrations. So maybe some of your customers are on a on-prem Exchange server, and they're really interested in this cloud thing, so they want to go to Office 365, or they have some kind of hybrid deployment. Maybe they've got an on-prem Exchange server, but an online SharePoint. So being able to kind of handle and manage both of those kinds of datas. So here's what I was talking about with the retention policies. So this is your standard Microsoft retention policy, right? So if there's an item in your inbox, it stays there, then it's moved to archive after 2 years. So yeah, that data's still there. You can still get it. But where it really comes down to is things like, okay, deleted items. If I'm an employee and I have an Office 365 account, that's my account. And if I've done something shady or if I've made some kind of mistake, there's nothing to save me from that, right? I can just delete those items. And once they're gone forever. Things that are moved into the recycling bin are kept for about a month before they're permanently deleted as well. But what's really interesting is if you look at the timeline of these retention policies of when things are deleted, when they're permanently deleted, this real interesting stat here, the average length of time from data compromise to discovery is 140 days. But the default settings only protect for 30 to 90 days. So I'm not really good at math, but that's about 50 days, somewhere around there, of a lapse of, oh, I didn't realize that those emails were deleted. But now it's too late because that 140 days has passed and those emails were deleted quite some time ago. So, Microsoft, again, they're just offering the service. If you want to delete your emails, you can. But with Veeam, it's a little different. With Veeam, you can keep your data for as long as you need, and it's very straightforward. You just say, I want to back up these specific mailboxes or these specific SharePoint sites, Teams data, and I want to keep it for this amount of time. And that's all there is to it. It doesn't matter if they delete emails or if they get hit with ransomware. That data is separate, and that data can always be restored in a variety of ways. And we'll talk about some of the restore options a little later in the presentation. So I hate to talk about the pandemic, because you've probably heard it 10 million times, but it is the world, the reality that we live in now. So a lot of us are working from home, and so this brings new challenges, right? Remote devices, you're on your own personal Wi-Fi. You may be a little more lax in like the sites you visit. You may not be as cognizant of where you're clicking and what you're doing because you're at home, you're on your own Wi-Fi, but you're using company machines that have your credentials into your Office 365 account. And I'll tell you, that is the number one way that ransomware attacks an organization, is through somebody's workstation, laptop that has Active Directory credentials or Office 365 organization credentials. Once they've infected that machine because that one person wasn't following best practices, or because they're at home and their network security is not as intricate as the company in which they work, that's how they get in. They steal your credentials. Now they have some permissions and privileges to kind of run amok. So these are some, right now it's a real important time for the kind of security because of these remote workers, because a lot of us are still working from home and are not back in the office yet. Now, like I mentioned, the big running joke in IT is, hey, my data is safe because it's in the cloud. Well, the cloud is just somebody's computer. So, obviously, service providers like Storcom, they've got these data centers and they're secure. Storcom's been with us since the beginning. So that's great. They've got the security in place. They've got the infrastructure. But again, Office 365 presents this unique challenge of, especially from an internal perspective of, I can log into Microsoft and I can, really mess everything up. I can delete everything. I can click on some, sketchy email and infect my computer, right? That there's no way to prevent that other than training that individual. So it's like, how can you make sure that if something internally like that does happen, you can be protected? And there's actually a great website. It's called KnowBe4. There's a link down there at the bottom. You can just Google KnowBe4 ransomware Office 365. So this person, I forget their name, but they used to be an actual hacker. They got caught. They did the crime. They did the time. Now they're on the side of good, helping companies and the government figure out vulnerabilities and educating people on the ways that hackers kind of infiltrate systems and different ways of preventing of spreading viruses and ransomware. And so this was a great video, and our marketing team was able to put this into a slide rather than the video itself. So imagine, if you will, you're just an employee at a company doing your job, working 9 to 5, right? You're tired. You get an email. Says, hey, there's a new feature. Now, this email is from Microsoft. I mean, obviously it's from Microsoft, right? It says Microsoft, and it's got the 4 colors squared right there. So nothing to worry about, right? So I'm going to click that. It says, this is anti-spam. I don't know anybody that likes spam. So I'd love to, block all the spam from coming to my inbox. So let me go ahead and click this link. Now I've just opened the floodgates. I'm not in trouble yet, but I have created the initial connection to the malware server on the other side that I have no idea about. And hey, Microsoft, they just need some read and write access to my mail. Nothing too big, right? Obviously, they've got to read my email to be able to filter out spam. I guess they need write access to my email. I don't know why, but that makes sense to me. So I'm going to click OK. Now I've done it. So now I've given permission for this other server to write to my Office 365 account. It's stolen my credentials. It's stolen my permissions. And now I've got a ransomware virus that is going through my Office 365 account. And I go into my inbox and it looks like I'm in some trouble because everything is now in hieroglyphics. I can't read any of the emails that were in my inbox. They're completely useless. I begin to panic, but then I get another email that I can read. And well, this is from the bad guys. And they're asking me to pay a Bitcoin of $300. And I do a lot of other webinars on specific just to ransomware, even outside the scope of Office 365. And one thing I've learned is that when ransomware first came out, there was only a few codes, a few names. And so that name and that reputation was important because if you paid the money and they didn't give you your data back, word would get around the industry that, hey, there's no reason to pay these people because they're not going to give you your data back. So they usually would give you your data back. So you would know that, hey, just go ahead and pay it, get your data back. And, maybe next time you'll get them. But nowadays, we have ransomware as a service, or RAS, which sounds crazy, but there's literally customer call centers. They'll take your credit card information. They'll answer any questions that you may have. If you need to speak to a manager, the whole kit and caboodle, right? And this is strictly for criminals with ransomware. So the point being is there's no guarantee. There's no guarantee that data is going to be recovered because maybe they ask for some money and then they say, cool, now give me twice that much money. And, you're already in it now. So you might as well just keep going. Or, they're going to set up shop somewhere else with the same ransomware virus under a new name that you've never heard of. So just because you pay somebody some Bitcoin doesn't mean you're going to get that data back. Luckily, there is a product called Veam Backup for Office 365. Like I said, we're on version 5 of this product. And our marketing team has told us that there are 40 different recovery options. So whether you need to restore an email directly back into the mailbox, maybe you need to do a PST export. Maybe that customer or that employee is no longer with the company, but I still have their data. They've been fired and human resources needs all the emails they sent between January and February of last year to XYZ. I can search for those emails and I can't restore it to that person's mailbox because they're no longer with the company. Well, I can send it as an attachment to HR, or I can put that email back into another user's mailbox. So same thing with SharePoint, restoring site farms, permissions, libraries, templates, OneDrive, the individual drives, volumes, files can be attached and restored natively. And then in version 5, we now support native backup and restore of teams. So this is going to be the channels, the group chats, the funny gifts that you send, right? All those things can be backed up and restored natively into the Teams platform or any of these other Office 365 applications. Okay, and so I want to kind of switch gears a little bit. That's kind of an in-depth of the Veeam solution, kind of why you need it, what can happen if you don't have it, and the functionalities that we can provide for you as a software company. But of course, Veeam is just software. So you want to use our product because it does all these great things. Well, are you going to want to store this data? Are you going to want to manage this? Or would you rather have, one of our service providers like Storecom offer all this for you? So in this slide, you can see you've got your Office 365 data, and that's backed up to Storecom's private cloud, and they leverage object storage for data immutability. And that's really important. I'm just Veeam, and I work with tons of service providers, so kind of playing the politician here. But it is great to see that Storecom is leveraging object storage as the repository, specifically because there's some immutability features offered within that. And if you guys are not familiar with immutability, that equals ransomware proofing. Because the backups are read-only, they can't be written to, they can't be deleted. They are kind of in their own little bubble. So immutability is a great way to protect your data, because you got to think, it's hard out here, right? I mean, you got people trying to steal your production data, hack your network, take over your computer, whatever. And so you say, well, I'm going to back up my data. Well, that backup data is susceptible as well. And these hackers, they know about Veeam. They know about these backup software solutions. So having the ability to protect the backups as well, because what we see now is a lot of ransomware will lock out your production data, and then it'll go sniffing for those backups and it'll delete them. So it's great that Storecom offers that immutability as an option to kind of protect your data from that. And kind of as we saw in the Veeam slide, this is kind of showing that same thing. So the amount of time the data is kept in your production Office 365 environment versus how it's backed up with Veeam. Veeam being just a software, you can do whatever you want. But then working with Storecom, they have some built-in kind of retention policies, and I'm sure it's very flexible, so you can keep your data as long as you need. All you got to do is talk to one of the folks at Storecom and say, hey, I want to back up every day. I want to keep it for 10 years. Back up these emails. Don't back up this. Very flexible in terms of what you would like to back up and protect and how you do that. Now, a question that may come up is, well, how much data, how much is it going to cost, right? What's the storage going to look like? How many users am I protecting? How many mailboxes do I have? A lot of companies don't know that, or smaller MSPs. Maybe an MSP wants to use Storecom for the storage, but they would like to kind of manage the relationships with their customers, right? Again, Veeam being so flexible, that can happen as well. But it's like, I don't know how many users I have. I don't know how many mailboxes I have. I don't know how. I don't know the performance of my Veeam server that's doing all these. So we do have a free calculator, and you can use this calculator to talk to your Office 365 account, and it will give you all the stuff that you see here. Trends over, data size changes day to day, how many mailboxes you have, the different Office 365 applications you have, and that'll tell you how many you need to license. It can also help you in planning the deployment of the Veeam services themselves, and the capacity calculator is part of that. So, hey, here's how much storage you're probably going to need over a specific amount of time. So we give you all kinds of tools to kind of plan this out and make sure you know what you're looking for and what it's going to look like on the other side. So with that, that's about all from me. So I'm going to open it up. I think Jeff may have one or so more slides, but I think right now we're going to take a few questions. So Heidi, if there's any questions from the audience, me and Jeff would love to answer those.
Hi guys, yeah, we do have a couple questions. I think this one's for you, Brandon. I see that version 5 supports Teams backups and restores, but didn't previous versions of the product already do that?
Oh, that's a great question. Wow. Yeah. So Veeam Backup for Office 365, like I said, we're on version 5. So this product's been out for a little while now. And we started with just Exchange. Then we added SharePoint and OneDrive. And then we did have some documentation that said we back up Teams because we did. Because Teams data, like your conversation histories, your chats, your GIFs, those are all stored in a hidden folder in Exchange called Chat History. And since we already backed up Exchange, we did have that data. There was also a few components of Teams that were on SharePoint. And because we already backed up Exchange and SharePoint, we could grab that data. However, natively restoring, for instance, a channel, a tab back into Teams was not supported by Veeam. So when you ask us, can we back up Teams? Well, yeah, most of it, because we have it, so kind of the the marketing approach was, yes, we back up teams. Yes, you can restore teams, but please read the fine print below. Now in version 5, all that is gone. We have native APIs that talk directly to teams, so you can natively right-click and restore individual teams' data with a click of a button.
The next question is, how often can I back up and how long can I keep my backups?
Yep, great question. So with Veeam, you can back up as often as every 5 minutes, and you can keep your data for as long as you need to, including until the end of time, so long as you have enough storage space to do that. But yes.
The next question is, if an O365 user is removed from the organization, then can I still restore their data from previous backups?
Another great question. I get that one a lot. Yeah. So keep in mind that the Office 365 product that has all your emails, your users, and all that stuff is completely separate from the backup of that data. Now, if a user leaves the company, obviously you can't restore that data back to that user's account because they don't have an account anymore. But there's so many restore options that Veeam has. So PST export, sending that to another person, those are completely separate. So yeah, so you can't restore an email back into a user's mailbox if they leave the company, but you can do other kind of restore options with that data.
And the next question is, I guess this is for Jeff. What is the process to schedule a call and or to get pricing?
Well, if you haven't been in touch with somebody at Storecom, we certainly have a website. You simply send your request or any questions you have for one of our, no charge sessions here to basically do a high level discovery and so forth. And that's can be reached at O365 Backup at Storcom.net. Oh, good. You have a slide on that. Great. And that's all there is. So having said that, I want to thank you all for joining this and hope to be talking to you very soon. Thanks and have a great day.